and her extreme generosity, allowing us to erect this memorial on her front lawn. Mrs. Lindstrom, please.
I'm Jim Bush, and I live in the Field Virginia Northrop Group neighborhood for 40 years. And my friend Joe Sinker, who owns Pepito's restaurant in the Parkway, and I were talking one day, and he said, "Have you heard about this story about the Lee family?" I said, "No, I had not heard anything about it." So I started investigating it. We started getting together, and he said, "Something should be done. This July is the 80th anniversary of the event." And so we started planning some kind of a ceremony. We had no idea what it was, but the more we talked to people, the more people said, yes, something should be done. In 1931, Arthur Lee, who was a veteran of World War I, bought a home on 4600 Columbus, which was a no-no for blacks back in those days. And he was offered more money than he paid for the house to move, but he would not. And a group of neighborhood, that actually was a forerunner of Field Virginia Northrop Group, met at the school here, and people were angry. It was a time in 1931 where it was hot, muggy weather, not unlike today. And the tempers were kind of warm. And finally one fellow said, "Well, if you won't move, we know how to take care of it." And he led a group from here to 4600 Columbus. And for 3 days, the crowd grew to estimates of 4,000 people. Many of them curious, but a lot of them were angry, throwing things at the house, terrifying the family inside. But inside that house was Mary Foreman, a 6-year-old girl, the daughter of Arthur and Edith Lee. And you can imagine how terrified she was. But she had to have a police escort for a year to walk to a school, not here, but over by Sabathani. There was a grade school.
My name is Joe Sinker Manjaris, Minneapolis.
Okay, and you're involved with theater and...
Yeah, I'm the owner of Pepito's restaurant and the Parkway Theater.
Okay.
That's kind of how I get involved in this thing. Doing some research for the theater. I met a producer, one of the producers of a Channel 2 named Daniel Bergen. And he told me about this incident, and it captured me. That was the thing that really struck me about this whole thing, was that no one knew about it, that it was a forgotten piece of history, and the grand scale of it it's breathtaking to me.
My name is Michael Smith.
Okay. How did you get involved in the event?
Well, I had enjoyed dining at his restaurant, at Joe's restaurant, and he informed me about this event and about what had happened in the 30s, and I was unaware. I wasn't familiar with the story.
Do you live in the neighborhood?
Absolutely not. I live in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and that's where the gentleman originated from. Actually.
That's what was so unique about it.
Arthur Lee was from St. Cloud?
St. Cloud, Minnesota. He endured a lot of racism in St. Cloud. And then to come to Minneapolis thinking that he would find something different or something new, he was faced with even more discrimination and racism.
Robert Arthur Lee Foreman.
And you're a relative, a descendant of Arthur Lee.
Arthur and Edith were my grandparents. Mary was their daughter and my mother.
Did you ever know them?
Very closely. Saw them every day.
Really? Well, good. You grew up with them?
Yes. They lived a half a block away from my mother's house, and their house was a half a block away.
Well, he's quite a hero.
He had a lot of help. There had a lot of good people helping.
Yeah. Took a lot of courage, though.
It really did. You know, it really did.
St. Cloud and then into World War I.
After World War I, came back, ended up in Minneapolis. Grandma Edith was out of Minnetonka Mills, was born in Minnetonka Mills. They got together, got married. My mother was born in Minneapolis, Mary. And the rest is kind of literally history, I guess.
The world won't get no better. We gotta change it, yeah. Just you and me.
Good evening, everyone. I'm W. Rayford Johnson, and I will be the Master of Ceremonies for the events as they occur this evening.
You know, in this building behind me, 80 years ago, there was a meeting of neighbors. And they were trying to figure out how they were going to solve a problem. And they stormed out of here. And they went down there when one man said, I'm going to go down there and take care of this myself. So we thought it was fitting that we have we commence this event today here at the school where it started. I had my hopes and dreams. I was a young soldier. I wanted to have a better life. I wanted to live in a neighborhood that I could send my kids to a good school, that I was near the water, that everything I dreamed for, I knew that I could accomplish here. I started a business. I got to meet some really great people in this neighborhood. So I had an unwritten contract with you to be family. For me, the Lees passed on something that I can't even put value on. When I found out about this event, I discovered a man and a woman who were really courageous, honorable. Something that they were role models for all of us. I'm a Latino, and so I know my history a little bit. In the Aztec times, in the city of Tenochtitlan, when they wanted to pass good news, or even bad news, they would send messengers. They'd send messengers to all corners of the country to spread the word. Today, we want to send a messenger to the future. We have our messenger here. I want to introduce you to a young gal, a young woman, who I've grown to respect so much, because she's a person that says she walks the walk and talks when she talks the talk, walks the walk. She raised money by selling lemonade. She attended all of our meetings. And she even wrote a paper and a project on this event. But she's doing all of this from the heart. Please welcome to the podium Sydney Okeson. Sydney?
Hi, I'm Sydney Okeson, and a few of my friends are here today. Please welcome Nikki, Kelsey, Megan, and my little sister Isabel. I'm a student here at Field School, and now at Field, white and black kids sit next to each other in class, at lunch, on the bus, and we all play with each other out on the playground. In fact, a bunch of my friends are black, like my best friend Kelsey. And 80 years ago, we wouldn't be able to be friends, because now I live like a block away from where the Lees lived, and I cannot believe that people were that racist back then, because I know now that most people aren't like that. So 80 years ago, neither my friend Kelsey or my other best friend Frances would be allowed to be my friends.
I dropped my rag. Didn't nobody notice? I dropped my rag.
This story unfolded to me like a puzzle. I was 40 years old when I first heard about this event. When Sarah Runcie and Ann Jurgensen from the William Mitchell College of Law came and interviewed my mother. And the story was actually unfolded at that point because it was one of the cases of an attorney by the name of Lena Olive Smith. Now, for those of you that do not know, Lena Olive Smith was the first African-American female licensed to practice law in the state of Minnesota. And she was also heavily involved in the NAACP. Now, my grandfather, prior to purchasing this home, consulted with her. Within several days, the crowd grew to literally thousands. This is a very good simulation of the event because the streets were barricaded off. We have the crowd, we have the heat. The only thing we don't have is the fact that they were selling ice cream and refreshments. They are absent here today because of that. The crowd grew, they threw stones, they threw black paint. They killed my mother's dog, Buster, they poisoned him. And the crowd was here from early morning till late into the next morning. My grandfather again called on the legal services of Lena Smith. Lena immediately met with the chiefs of police, the secretary in the mayor's office, the neighborhood group, and at that meeting she clearly stated to them that my grandfather was not willing to leave this home. He was not willing to sell and he was not going to go. And that he had certain rights that anybody else has. And that if they did not, that the police needed to provide some protection for my family, my grandparents as well as my mother, and that Lena Smith even threatened to call the governor to bring out the National Guard. Now, my mother was attending field school at the time, but she couldn't go to school because the crowd was too big. Police came out and did escort her to and from school. They literally had to wrap her in a blanket to bring her from the home to the police car, and they would escort her to school, and then they would bring her home and they would wrap her in a blanket and take her back into the house. But Lena Smith made a public plea through the newspaper where she asked anyone that knew Arthur or Edith to come to their aid to help protect their family and their home. And through those pleas through the newspaper, World War I veterans, U.S. postal mail carriers and service guards, predominantly white, showed up to protect my family from this home. Now, as the days passed, and it took almost a month before the crowd finally left, they still threw things at the house, they still hollered threats. Nobody knows exactly where my grandfather sold this house or how much he sold it for. But I can give you a direct quote from what he told me as a young boy, a substantial amount. That one day, my grandmother looked at my grandfather and said, "Enough, Lee, this has gone on long enough." So my grandfather, being of sound mind, sold his home. But you have to remember, Grandpa went to work. Mom had a police escort to school. Buster had been poisoned. So my grandmother, when the postal workers were gone, when the VFW workers were gone, my grandmother was 4'11". She was in this home alone.
To Mrs. Pearl Lindstrom, the current owner of this house since 1958, for graciously allowing us to gather here, and her extreme generosity allowing us to erect this memorial on her front lawn. Mrs. Lindstrom, please.
I hear you. I hear you.
But you can't do it. Great things for me. You're wonderful and gracious.
Sadness is certainly one emotion I had when I first learning about the Lee family story. The reality of that time and the experience for the Lee family at this place and the community as a whole saddened me. Another emotion that I felt was embarrassment. I was embarrassed by my personal ignorance that the event even took place 80 years ago. I should have known. We all should have known.
As we honor the past and acknowledge the role of race in our history, I wanted to talk to you about one way that we can build the momentum together, and that is building bridges. I've got some feedback here. Building bridges is a project that's led by neighbors from South Minneapolis neighborhoods that are east and west of the freeway. And their goal is to reconnect communities divided by race, time, and 35W. These neighbors came together after a dog park was proposed in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And the dialogue around that dog park was emotional and racially polarized. It highlighted a racial divide that still exists within our community. And these neighbors who formed Building Bridges are committed to addressing that racial divide, not ignoring it.
For many centuries, the white dove has been a beautiful symbol of peace, love, and new beginnings. This evening, the spirit of my grandparents, Arthur and Edith Lee, and my mother, Mary, have been with us in the form of these doves. By releasing the doves in honor of my grandparents and mother, we will begin the healing process of opening the doors and acknowledging that this event will serve. We will continue to build bridges. Watch now as the doves are trained to soar into the sky, making 2 circles overhead as a pair, and watch as they return home.
Oh, I'm Debbie Williams, and Robert and I have 2 children, and these are our grandchildren. This is Armani Lee Foreman and DeSaint Lee Foreman. So these are the youngest. That's be their great-great-grandchildren of Arthur and Edith Lee.
You are?
I'm Ryan Lee Guthrie Williams.
And your father is?
Arthur Lee Foreman.
Your great-grandfather is?
Arthur Lee. Yeah.
And these are your kids?
Yep. Oldest one in the front, that's St. Gabriel Lee Foreman. One in the back, that's Armani Giovanni Lee Foreman.
In this picture where you see Edith, and that's my grandmother right next to me. They're actually at my grandma's house, and that's my dad. So that's her son, and I'm her great niece. So I'm their great niece.
Okay, and your name is?
Angela Morris.
Yeah, I'm his daughter.
Okay, and your name is?
I'm Remy Williams.
Okay, thank you. Great day.
Yeah, it is a lovely day, and this is a lovely turnout. I'm really happy to see all these people here.
Where do you live?
I live downtown Minneapolis, just off Park.
Pearl Lindstrom.
Okay, and your address is?
4600 Columbus Avenue South.
Okay, and this is your home where the Arthur Lee family lives?
This is my home for 53 years.
Oh my goodness. You didn't buy it from the Lees?
I moved in here in 1958.
Okay. And how did you appreciate all the company this afternoon?
Well, it was nice. I mean, it was for a memorial for a family that put up with a lot of hardship and cruelty back in 1931.
Well, it's very nice of you to participate in it, allow them to put it on your lawn.
The Lord was my guide, and He approved of it.
Would you mind telling me how old you are?
I'm 89.
89. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you again. And
You're welcome.
Thank you for being such a gracious hostess.